Did she honestly think she'd walk out with a dime? Vivian's voice cut sharply through the stale air, a knife wrapped in silk, slicing straight to Maeve's bones. Maeve stood frozen at the entrance to her childhood home, heartbeat wild, embarrassment hot against her cheeks. 13 years away, yet nothing had changed. Vivian still owned this room, commanding attention effortlessly. Beside Maeve, Caleb stiffened, his fingers tightening around hers, small nails digging softly into her palm. She glanced down into her son's wide, solemn eyes, wishing desperately she'd shielded him from this humiliation. Vivian sat poised at the head of the long mahogany table, black dress impeccably tailored, pearl necklace shimmering against pale skin. She gave Maeve a cold, appraising look, just enough disdain to burn, yet subtle enough to deny outright insult. Derek, Vivian's son, lounged beside her, his arrogant smile carved cruelly onto handsome features. Maeve took a careful breath, forcing herself to walk forward. She couldn't leave now, her pride wouldn't allow it. Caleb moved silently beside her, gaze cast downward, cheeks flushed from embarrassment he didn't deserve. Poor Maeve, you never understood him. Derek drawled lazily, tapping fingers against polished wood. Did you really think Dad forgot what you did? Whispers spread instantly through the gathered crowd of relatives and supposed friends, quiet words loaded with old accusations, old wounds reopened with surgical precision. Maeve's mouth went dry, her throat tightening painfully. She recognized many of them, faces from her childhood, from birthdays and holidays, but no one met her eyes. At the front, the lawyer, Mr. Eldridge, cleared his throat uncomfortably. We are gathered today to read the last will and testament of James Dalton. I ask everyone to remain respectful. Vivian's lips twitched slightly, a hidden smirk daring Maeve to react. The room quieted, anticipation thick. Maeve felt trapped beneath a magnifying glass, every movement studied mercilessly. Firstly, Mr. Eldridge began, voice wavering slightly. The Dalton estate, including all holdings, assets and properties, are left entirely to Vivian Dalton and Derek Dalton. Vivian sighed softly, feigning modesty, while Derek relaxed smugly into his chair, triumphant. Maeve steadied herself, expecting nothing less, though the pain remained sharp, surprising her with its depth. Mr. Eldridge paused, visibly uncomfortable. To my daughter Maeve, I leave nothing. It is my express wish that Maeve receive no inheritance, due to events we all know. Maeve's pulse thundered wildly. Her eyes stung, humiliation choking her as every stare pierced through her resolve. Derek leaned forward slightly, cruel anticipation shining in his eyes. Your father knew exactly who you were, Vivian whispered, voice laced with false sympathy, loud enough for everyone to hear. This outcome surprises no one. Laughter rippled faintly around her, quiet, mocking, devastatingly familiar. Maeve's legs shook beneath her. She glanced desperately toward Caleb, seeing anguish mirrored clearly in his young face. Suddenly Caleb stepped forward, his voice trembling but clear. Wait. Vivian raised one elegant brow, amusement fading slightly. Derek frowned sharply. Maeve looked at Caleb, startled and terrified by his sudden bravery. Caleb, don't, she whispered urgently, but Caleb ignored her, pulling a carefully folded envelope from his pocket. Grandpa wrote this, he declared softly but firmly. He gave it to me before he died. A stunned silence gripped the room. Vivian's carefully controlled mask slipped for an instant, eyes flashing with suspicion. Derek's arrogant smirk dissolved. Mr. Eldridge reached carefully, accepting the envelope from Caleb's shaking fingers. He opened it slowly, unfolding the crisp paper within. His eyes widened noticeably as he began reading silently. What is this? Vivian snapped, voice losing its careful composure. Mr. Eldridge looked up, clearly shaken. This appears authentic, written, signed, and notarized by Mr. Dalton himself. He expressly amends his will, stating clearly that Maeve Dalton is to inherit everything. Vivian rose sharply, disbelief stark on her pale face. Impossible, James would never. He says otherwise, Mr. Eldridge interrupted carefully, eyes sympathetic toward Maeve. It states explicitly, I deeply regret having turned my daughter away. Vivian manipulated me into signing papers I did not fully understand, cutting Maeve off unjustly. It is my final wish that Maeve regain everything, my estate, my fortune, my legacy. Vivian's mouth opened then closed, eyes blazing with fury. Derek slammed a fist against the table. He wouldn't do this. Maeve stood speechless, heart pounding painfully. Caleb slipped gently back to her side, gripping her hand once more, calm returning slowly to his eyes. Maeve stared at her son, dazed. "Why didn't you tell me?" Caleb's voice was barely audible, eyes shining softly. "Grandpa made me promise. He said you'd understand." Vivian turned sharply, voice dripping venom. "You've planned this from the beginning, haven't you, Maeve?" "I knew nothing," Maeve replied quietly, though anger now rose fiercely within her, fueled by years of pain. "You're the one who planned things, Vivian, you always have." Mr. Eldridge interrupted gently, attempting to control the chaos. "This amendment is binding. We must pause and consider it carefully." Vivian's eyes narrowed dangerously, voice trembling with barely suppressed rage. "Consider it carefully. This is a disgrace." James was unwell. Maeve manipulated him. Maeve stepped forward, surprising herself. "Enough, Vivian. You took my father from me. You took my home. You lied and twisted everything until I doubted myself. No more." Her voice echoed sharply through the silence, stunning even herself. Vivian stared coldly, visibly shaken by Maeve's newfound strength. "You're making a mistake," Vivian said bitterly. "You think you've won, but you'll regret this." Maeve met her gaze evenly, feeling something shift permanently within her. "I don't care about winning, Vivian, I care about the truth. My father left that for Caleb, because he knew your greed. You've lost." Vivian's hands trembled briefly, composure shattered. Without another word, she spun sharply, exiting swiftly with Derek close behind, leaving an uneasy hush hanging thickly behind them. Maeve sank slowly into the nearest chair, legs weak beneath her. Caleb wrapped gentle arms around her neck, whispering softly, "It's okay now, Mom. Grandpa loved you." Maeve nodded slowly, heart aching deeply yet swelling with gratitude for the brave boy beside her. She'd spent years doubting herself, believing Vivian's cruel narrative. Now suddenly, truth felt possible again, fragile yet real. She lifted her gaze slowly, catching Mr. Eldridge's gentle approving nod. The battle ahead wouldn't be simple. Vivian would fight viciously. But Maeve felt stronger now, steadied by Caleb's quiet courage. After years spent hiding in shame, Maeve realized something essential. Her father had chosen her after all, in the end quietly trusting his grandson to restore her stolen dignity. For Maeve that changed everything. Maeve could feel the eyes on her long after the room emptied, their gazes lingering in the silent air. People left reluctantly, exchanging whispers filled with speculation. Vivian's dramatic exit had ignited curiosity like gasoline to flame, and now Maeve felt scorched by their lingering doubt. She sank into an old leather chair, legs trembling, breath still uneven. Caleb knelt beside her, gently touching her arm, watching with concern too mature for his age. "I'm sorry, Mom," Caleb murmured softly, his voice hesitant, unsure if he'd done something wrong. "I didn't mean to upset you. Grandpa said it had to be a secret until they tried something like this." Maeve exhaled shakily, looking down into her son's anxious face. Caleb was brave in ways she'd never managed. 13 years old, yet he'd stood firm against Vivian's poison without flinching, something Maeve had struggled to do since childhood. "No, sweetheart, you did exactly what Grandpa wanted," she reassured him gently, her voice finally steadier. "You did something incredibly brave. It's just a lot for me to process." Caleb studied her face carefully, visibly relieved. "He said he couldn't trust anyone else. Not even you. He told me you wouldn't have wanted the money. But he wanted you to have the truth." Maeve closed her eyes, heart clenching painfully. Truth. It seemed a cruel joke, after all these years. Her father had spent over a decade pushing her aside, turning his gaze from her every attempt at reconciliation, and yet here was evidence he'd wanted her back, hidden quietly in her son's small hands. Her chest tightened sharply, emotions clashing violently inside her. She felt anger toward him for waiting until death's doorstep to finally show regret, but she also felt a painful ache, long-buried love surfacing from beneath years of bitterness. She opened her eyes slowly, meeting Caleb's hopeful gaze. "When did he give you the letter?" Caleb swallowed, eyes darting nervously to the now empty doorway before answering. "The last time we visited him at the hospital. You went to get coffee." Grandpa grabbed my hand, real tight. "He said Vivian would never stop lying to him, or you. He told me he was scared he'd already lost everything important, and he couldn't lose you too. That's why he wrote the letter." Maeve nodded slowly, absorbing Caleb's words, each one landing painfully in her chest. Her father had shown little vulnerability throughout her childhood. To imagine him frightened, reaching desperately out through Caleb, felt almost impossible. "Why didn't he just talk to me directly?" she wondered aloud, voice filled with frustration and sadness. "He had years, Caleb. Years to fix this." Caleb looked troubled, eyebrows knitting together seriously. "He said Vivian convinced him, you hated him. He said sometimes he couldn't tell the truth from lies anymore. I think he felt ashamed, Mom. Ashamed for believing her instead of you." Maeve pressed fingers to her temples, emotions surging wildly. Caleb's words stripped away carefully built defenses, revealing raw wounds she'd never properly healed. Her father had allowed Vivian to twist his perception until the daughter he'd once adored became a stranger. He refused to know. The thought made Maeve nauseous, grief bubbling hot in her throat. She'd spent countless sleepless nights questioning her own worth, believing Vivian's narrative, doubting every memory she had of her father's love. Caleb touched her hand again, gentle yet steady. "Mom, you're not alone anymore." Grandpa knew he messed up. He tried to make it right. "It's not too late." Maeve inhaled deeply, steadied by Caleb's quiet wisdom. Her son had always been perceptive, seeing truths beyond his years. She squeezed his hand, silently thanking whatever force gave her such a remarkable child. Before she could respond, Mr. Eldridge appeared quietly in the doorway, his expression cautious but kind. "Maeve, we need to discuss what happens next." She straightened slowly, pulling her strength together. "What do you mean?" He stepped closer, glancing toward Caleb, clearly hesitant. "Vivian won't accept this quietly. She will contest your father's final amendment. She'll claim manipulation or forgery. We must be prepared for that fight." Maeve sighed bitterly, eyes darkening. "Of course she will. She's determined," he continued softly, eyes sympathetic. "She'll dig into every part of your past, painting you as the enemy. She'll stop at nothing to protect herself." Maeve's jaw tightened, determination rising slowly inside her. "Let her. She's lied enough. Maybe it's time the rest of the world sees Vivian for what she really is." Mr. Eldridge nodded approvingly, his voice lowering carefully. "Your father privately shared more concerns about Vivian, issues beyond the inheritance. There were financial irregularities, withdrawals he questioned but could never prove. He planned to confront her but grew too ill." Maeve's eyes widened sharply. "Financial irregularities? You think Vivian was stealing?" "Possibly." He mentioned strange account activity, large transfers Vivian insisted were legitimate, but he couldn't reconcile the amounts or the timing. Unfortunately, he was too unwell to follow up properly. Maeve stared blankly ahead, heart thundering again. Vivian had always been cunning, but outright theft, stealing directly beneath her father's nose, felt shocking even for her. Maeve's pulse quickened, realizing Vivian's anger wasn't just about pride or inheritance. Her stepmother was hiding deeper secrets, dangerous truths that could destroy her carefully maintained facade. "Does Vivian know what my father suspected?" Maeve asked sharply. Mr. Eldridge shook his head. He never confronted her openly. He feared losing any chance to make things right with you. "I suspect Vivian believes her secrets remain hidden." Maeve straightened decisively, eyes narrowing in quiet resolve. "Then she'll never see this coming. We have proof she manipulated my father into cutting me out. Now we find proof of the theft. Vivian spent years creating this false narrative. It's time to end it." Caleb stepped beside her, gaze steady. "She won't let go easily, Mom." Maeve smiled bitterly. Neither will I, Mr. Eldridge exhaled, visibly relieved. I'm glad you understand. I'll arrange an immediate investigation into your father's accounts. If Vivian took anything, we'll find it. But Maeve, be careful. She's powerful and ruthless. She has allies, and she'll use everyone. Maeve nodded slowly, suddenly clear-headed, focused. Years spent running, hiding from Vivian's lies, had weakened her. But Caleb's bravery reminded Maeve of strength buried deep beneath grief and humiliation. Her father's regret gave her purpose, fuel to reclaim what Vivian stole. We'll be careful, Maeve promised softly. But Vivian underestimated me for years. She sees only the daughter she broke. She's never seen the woman who survived. Caleb touched her shoulder gently. I'm proud of you, Mom. Maeve met her son's gaze, her heart swelling fiercely. She'd protected him his whole life, but somehow he'd become her strength instead. Maeve realized now she wasn't fighting Vivian only for herself. She was fighting for Caleb's future, for the legacy her father had desperately wanted to return to her. Together they stepped toward the doorway. Outside, shadows had deepened, sunlight fading quietly across her childhood home. But Maeve felt stronger now, ready to confront whatever darkness Vivian unleashed next. Because for the first time, Maeve understood clearly, she was no longer alone, and truth was finally on her side. Vivian didn't waste time. Within hours, rumors spread through town like a brush fire, swift and ruthless. Maeve felt the stares everywhere, in the market aisles, at the gas station, whispered conversations stopping abruptly when she drew near. Vivian's friends moved quickly, planting poisonous seeds in every ear willing to listen. Maeve closed her front door, exhausted, leaning against it as though the heavy oak might shield her from reality. Caleb watched quietly from the sofa, his school bag at his feet. He'd barely spoken on the drive home, sensing her tension but giving her space to think. Are they really going to try to say Grandpa's letter was fake? Caleb finally asked, voice careful, worry etched in every word. Maeve moved toward him, settling beside him gently. Vivian knows how much trouble she's in. She'll say anything now. Caleb glanced up sharply. What if they believe her? Vivian's powerful, Mom. She knows important people. Maeve inhaled slowly, her heart aching with a fresh wave of guilt. Caleb was 13. He shouldn't have to bear this anxiety, shouldn't need to consider betrayal and manipulation. Yet here they were, trapped by Vivian's schemes. They'll believe Vivian for a while, she admitted softly. But we know the truth. Your grandfather trusted you, and that letter is real. Vivian can't erase that forever. Caleb nodded slowly, fidgeting anxiously with his sleeve. He seemed hesitant, carefully weighing something before he spoke again. There's something else. Maeve frowned gently. What do you mean? Grandpa didn't only give me that letter. The day we visited, he told me something else, something important. Maeve leaned closer, pulse quickening slightly. Tell me. Caleb took a slow breath. He said there was another document hidden in the house. Something Vivian had signed. Grandpa told me if Vivian ever tried to hurt you again, we had to find it. He said it would prove everything. Maeve stared, stunned. Her father had spent years under Vivian's influence, yet it seemed he'd quietly been preparing an escape, planting seeds of truth in Caleb's hands. Hope surged painfully in her chest. Did he tell you where he hid it? Caleb shook his head uncertainly. He didn't get the chance. Vivian came back into the room before he could say, but he said you'd know where to look. Maeve's thoughts spun, memories rushing back sharply. She envisioned her father's study clearly, books lining shelves, the old desk polished from years of use. She recalled childhood days spent curled in his big armchair, while he worked, sharing silence she cherished. If her father hid something, it would be somewhere Vivian never bothered to look, somewhere Maeve would understand immediately. The study, Maeve whispered suddenly. His old desk. There was a hidden compartment beneath the drawers. He showed me once as a child. I'd almost forgotten. Caleb straightened, eyes brightening hopefully. Can we go tonight? Maeve hesitated briefly, worry flaring. Returning to the estate felt dangerous, especially now, But her father had prepared this path for them, trusting Caleb to uncover truths he hadn't dared face himself. They had no choice but to follow it. Yes, she agreed quietly. Tonight after dark. Night came slowly, each hour crawling by painfully. Maeve's nerves felt frayed by the time she and Caleb approached the darkened estate. Shadows wrapped around the familiar building, windows staring blankly back. They parked a careful distance away, quietly walking the rest of the gravel drive. Maeve's heartbeat thundered, each step toward the manor heavy with memories, both precious and painful. Slipping inside through the kitchen door, Maeve navigated carefully toward her father's study, Caleb staying close beside her, breath shallow with nervousness. The manor lay silent, empty. Vivian, confident in her security, hadn't bothered hiring guards. The study door creaked open gently beneath Maeve's touch, revealing familiar shapes cloaked in darkness, the wide oak desk, armchair still positioned exactly as she remembered. Caleb stayed near the door, watching carefully as Maeve approached the desk. She felt beneath the drawers, fingers searching gently until she felt a small catch release softly, a hidden compartment sliding open. Inside lay an envelope, thick and carefully sealed. Maeve's hands trembled as she pulled it free, heartbeat pounding in her ears. Opening it cautiously, she found several pages covered in careful handwriting, her father's handwriting, and another sheet bearing Vivian's clear, elegant signature. "What does it say?" Caleb whispered urgently. Maeve's eyes scanned quickly, disbelief growing with every word. "It's an affidavit. Vivian admits here that she misled my father, manipulated him into signing documents against his will. She admits knowing I never betrayed him. She says clearly, she purposely destroyed my relationship with him, tricked him into disowning me." Caleb moved beside her, staring in disbelief. "She confessed?" Maeve nodded, eyes wide. "Dad must have made her sign this years ago, maybe as leverage, protection against her lies. But she didn't know he kept it hidden." Footsteps suddenly echoed sharply in the corridor beyond the study. Maeve spun, heart freezing, recognizing Vivian's voice clearly through the closed door. "You said you heard someone," Vivian snapped impatiently. "I swear, Derek, if you dragged me down here for nothing." Panic surged hotly inside Maeve. Caleb's eyes widened fearfully, his hand grasping hers tightly. They couldn't let Vivian find them here, holding her confession. Quickly, Maeve closed the compartment, clutching the envelope tightly, pressing herself and Caleb into a narrow space between a bookshelf and heavy curtains near the window, breathing shallowly, praying they remained hidden. The door burst open roughly. Vivian entered, switching on lights, eyes scanning suspiciously. Derek followed, annoyed. "There's no one here, Mother," Derek snapped irritably. Vivian's gaze lingered dangerously around the room, lingering briefly near Maeve's hiding spot. Maeve barely breathed, heart hammering painfully against her chest. Finally Vivian sighed impatiently, turning sharply away. "Fine," she said coldly, "but I want everything valuable moved tomorrow. I don't trust Maeve or that child of hers. James clearly left too many loose ends." They exited quickly, footsteps fading down the hall. Maeve exhaled shakily, waiting several agonizing minutes before slowly emerging with Caleb, envelope still clutched tightly. "Vivian knows," Caleb whispered nervously. "She'll try to erase everything now." Maeve shook her head determinedly, resolving hardening fiercely. "We won't let her. Vivian thought she destroyed my family. She took my father, my dignity, my home, but tonight we took them back." Caleb nodded firmly, sensing the shift inside Maeve. Years of grief and anger crystallized into fierce determination. She'd survived Vivian's cruelty once. Now, with proof in hand, she'd face whatever came next unafraid. They moved silently back through darkness toward freedom, Maeve clutching evidence that could end Vivian's reign of lies forever. Her father's quiet preparations, his hidden truths entrusted to Caleb, had finally illuminated their path clearly forward. Maeve realized now, painfully yet powerfully, that her father hadn't abandoned her entirely. He'd quietly fought Vivian's darkness in ways she'd never imagined, trusting his grandson to guide Maeve back to truth, dignity and peace. Together Maeve and Caleb stepped confidently into the waiting night, ready finally to reclaim what had always rightfully belonged to them. The affidavit changed everything overnight. Maeve didn't sleep, couldn't, her mind raced with strategies, plans forming and unraveling. Morning arrived swiftly, a harsh golden intrusion. Caleb found her at the kitchen table, nursing cold coffee, eyes fixed on the document as if it might disappear the moment she looked away. They can't deny this, can they? Caleb asked quietly, sitting beside her, voice still thick with sleep. Maeve shook her head slowly, exhaustion heavy behind her eyes. Vivian signed it, but she'll fight, twist it, try anything. We have to be ready. Caleb's jaw tightened in quiet determination. We've faced worse. Maeve smiled faintly at her son's bravery, drawing strength from his quiet resolve. She stood slowly, stretching tense muscles. We need Mr. Eldridge, he'll know what to do next. By noon Maeve sat again in Mr. Eldridge's office, Caleb beside her, handing him the affidavit with cautious hope. Mr. Eldridge's eyes widened as he read, astonishment giving way to grim satisfaction. Remarkable, he murmured finally, shaking his head slowly. This confirms everything. Vivian has no way out. She won't surrender quietly, Maeve cautioned. He nodded seriously, placing the document down gently. We'll arrange a hearing immediately. Vivian won't have time to bury this. But Maeve, she'll attack your reputation harder than ever now. Be prepared. Maeve's gaze hardened defiantly. I'm ready. 2 days later, Maeve walked into the courthouse, Caleb firmly beside her. The room buzzed, packed with curious townspeople eager for drama. Vivian sat confidently with Derek, surrounded by allies, her posture rigidly proud, her elegant facade firmly in place. Maeve met Vivian's gaze evenly. Vivian smiled coldly, unbothered. Maeve knew that smile. It hid fury and fear beneath carefully maintained composure. The judge called order, eyes stern behind thick glasses. We convene today regarding the estate of James Dalton. Mr. Eldridge, please proceed. Mr. Eldridge stood calmly, holding Vivian's signed affidavit prominently. We have obtained evidence Vivian Dalton manipulated James Dalton into disowning his daughter Maeve. Vivian signed this affidavit admitting her deception. Thus James Dalton's final amendment reinstating Maeve is fully justified. A ripple of shock filled the courtroom. Vivian rose sharply, voice icy with controlled fury. Lies, I never signed such a thing willingly. Maeve coerced or forged that document. Mr. With, Eldridge turned calmly, gaze piercing. The signature is verified. 2 expert witnesses confirmed its authenticity. Vivian's face paled slightly. Derek shifted nervously beside her, clearly unsettled. She coerced me, Vivian snapped, composure fracturing visibly. Maeve threatened me. James misunderstood my intentions entirely. Maeve rose suddenly, surprising even herself. She spoke clearly, voice steady, ringing through tense silence. You destroyed my relationship with my father. You turned him against his own daughter with lies. You don't get to rewrite this now, Vivian. Vivian's eyes flashed with venom, voice trembling with barely contained rage. You never deserved his love. He saw who you truly were, a manipulative child, bitter, selfish. You abandoned him. I never abandoned him, Maeve replied calmly. You stole him, but he knew. He saw through your lies in the end. Vivian's hands clenched tightly, nails digging painfully into her palms. You think you've won something, Maeve. But you've lost more than you realize. The judge struck the gavel sharply, interrupting firmly. Enough. Mrs. Dalton, your signed confession is legally binding evidence. I see no reason to dispute Mr. Dalton's final wishes regarding his daughter. Maeve Dalton's inheritance stands. Vivian recoiled visibly, mouth opening in disbelief. Your Honor, silence, the judge snapped sternly. There will also be a formal investigation regarding your activities concerning Mr. Dalton's finances. Until then, the Dalton estate transfers immediately to Maeve. Vivian's breath caught sharply, horror dawning openly across her elegant features. Derek stood abruptly, voice rising desperately. You can't. The judge's gaze narrowed dangerously. The decision is final. Adjourned. Chaos erupted instantly. Voices rose in a cacophony of disbelief and shock, chairs scraping harshly against the floor. Vivian remained motionless, shock freezing her completely. Maeve sank slowly into her chair, breath finally coming freely again. Caleb touched her shoulder gently, steadying her quietly. Mr. Eldridge approached, smiling warmly, satisfaction clear. You did it, Maeve. Your father would be proud. Maeve's eyes stung sharply with tears. I just wish he'd told me himself. He did in his own way, Mr. Eldridge reassured gently, glancing toward Caleb. He trusted Caleb to bring you back to truth. He knew exactly who he was choosing. Across the courtroom, Vivian stood, composure utterly shattered, eyes glittering furiously. She approached swiftly, voice low and dangerous. You'll regret this, Maeve. You may have won this fight, but I'll destroy your name in this town. You'll never find peace here. Maeve met her gaze unflinchingly, calm finally overtaking anger. You've done your worst, Vivian. Your lies can't hurt me anymore. I'm not afraid of you. Vivian flinched visibly, something fragile cracking inside her carefully maintained facade. She spun sharply, retreating quickly, Derek trailing uncertainly behind. Maeve turned back to Caleb, who watched her quietly, pride shining brightly in his young face. She felt something shift deeply within her, a peace she hadn't felt in years. Together they stepped from the courtroom, sunlight warm against their faces. Maeve felt eyes on her again, this time filled not with judgment, but curiosity, maybe even respect. Her story, the real story, had finally emerged from shadows. Vivian spent years cultivating. You did it, Mom, Caleb whispered softly, squeezing her hand tightly. She smiled gently, heart swelling painfully with gratitude. No, we did. They walked slowly toward home, the weight Maeve carried for years finally lifted, truth restoring dignity stolen from her youth. She knew battles remained, Vivian would cling bitterly to power, but Maeve felt different now, stronger, unafraid. Because Vivian had underestimated the bond between a father, daughter, and grandson. She'd never anticipated James Dalton's quiet redemption, hidden carefully until it could safely return to Maeve. Maeve knew now that her father hadn't truly abandoned her. He'd simply lost his way, misled by Vivian's cunning words. But in the end, James Dalton had trusted Caleb, the grandson he barely knew, to guide his daughter back to truth, family, and rightful legacy. Maeve tightened her grip on Caleb's hand, stepping confidently into the waiting future. Vivian's power had crumbled, shattered by truth. Maeve was finally home again, and this time she'd never allow anyone to take it away. The news spread quickly, burning through town with unstoppable force. Maeve's phone rang relentlessly, messages flooding in from names she hadn't heard in years, some offering cautious support, others simply curious. It felt overwhelming, like a bright spotlight she'd never wanted. Maeve retreated inward, staying close to Caleb as if their small apartment were the only safe haven left. A week passed, and Vivian's carefully woven stories began to unravel entirely. Rumors about her deception and manipulation rippled outward, gaining strength until even Vivian's closest allies started distancing themselves. The investigation Mr. Eldridge initiated uncovered Vivian's hidden financial misconduct, evidence of siphoned funds, falsified documents, betrayal that went far beyond family inheritance. One rainy afternoon, Maeve stood by the window, watching droplets stream down the glass. Her doorbell rang sharply, pulling her attention away. When she opened the door, Vivian stood there, shoulders slumped slightly, a shadow of her former polished elegance. Rain had flattened her usually immaculate hair, mascara smudged at the corners of her eyes. Her composure was shattered, replaced by raw vulnerability. Maeve had never seen before. What do you want, Vivian? Maeve asked calmly, voice neutral. Vivian looked up, eyes red-rimmed, tired. Can we talk? Maeve hesitated briefly, then stepped back, allowing her inside. Vivian moved quietly into the small living room, eyes lingering on framed photos of Caleb, the modest furniture that marked Maeve's humble, hard-earned independence. You have a lovely home, Vivian murmured softly, voice genuinely wistful. It's simple. Peaceful. Maeve folded her arms protectively. What do you want, Vivian? Vivian took a careful breath, eyes meeting Maeve's squarely. I came to apologize. Maeve felt her jaw tighten skeptically. Apologize? Now? I don't expect forgiveness. Vivian admitted quietly, I don't deserve it. But I need you to understand why I did it. I didn't set out to destroy your relationship with James, not entirely. Maeve watched silently, offering nothing. Vivian continued, voice trembling faintly. I loved your father, deeply truly. But he never loved me the way he loved your mother. After she died, I thought I could step into that empty space, make him love me as completely as he'd loved her. But there was always you, Maeve. You looked so much like her, spoke like her, every time he looked at you, he saw her. I knew I'd never measure up. So you chose to ruin my relationship with him instead. Maeve said coldly, voice bitter with remembered pain. Vivian nodded slowly, shame clear on her face. It wasn't sudden. Small lies at first, whispered doubts, subtle accusations. I convinced him you were selfish, resentful. Over time it grew easier. James trusted me blindly. I manipulated him, knowing exactly how to wound him deepest, through you. Maeve swallowed hard, the truth hurting afresh. He believed every word. Because he was grieving, Maeve, Vivian replied softly. He lost your mother and feared losing you. I used that fear, but in the end it destroyed him, and it destroyed me. He found out eventually, confronted me. I'd gone too far. He never forgave me, even when I begged. Maeve studied Vivian's face carefully, searching for deception, but she saw only genuine sorrow. Hollow emptiness behind carefully guarded eyes. Why tell me now? Maeve asked finally. Vivian sighed deeply, shoulders sinking further. Because there's nothing left to hide. You exposed everything. Derek won't speak to me. Friends won't return my calls. Everything I built on lies collapsed, and now I have nothing. You had everything, Maeve replied softly, sadness heavy in her voice. You had my father's love, the family home, status, power. You threw it away because it wasn't enough. You wanted more than love, you wanted control. Vivian's eyes filled suddenly, tears spilling silently down her pale cheeks. I know, I understand now how much I lost, how much pain I caused, especially you and Caleb. Maeve stood quietly, heart aching with mixed emotions. Vivian's remorse felt sincere, yet years of pain couldn't vanish instantly. I can't forgive you yet, Maeve admitted. Finally, voice gentle but firm. Maybe someday. But today, all I can do is move forward. Vivian nodded, accepting the truth quietly. She moved toward the door, pausing briefly. Your father always loved you. Even when he pushed you away, even when I convinced him otherwise. He loved you desperately. With that, Vivian left, stepping quietly back into the rain, disappearing slowly from view. Maeve closed the door gently, exhaling shakily. Caleb appeared quietly from his bedroom, watching her carefully. I heard everything. Caleb admitted softly. Are you okay? Maeve moved toward him, gently smoothing his hair. I think so. Vivian's apology doesn't change the past, but at least now we have the whole truth. Caleb nodded thoughtfully. What happens next? We rebuild, Maeve said softly, conviction firm, together. In the following weeks, Maeve reclaimed her family home, slowly transforming rooms heavy with grief into places of warmth and healing. Caleb thrived, smiling easily again, laughter returning to corridors that had long been silent. Vivian faced legal consequences, stripped of influence, yet Maeve found herself feeling neither bitterness nor triumph, just quiet relief. One evening, Maeve discovered Caleb sitting alone in her father's old study, gazing thoughtfully at an old family portrait. He turned toward her, eyes gentle. Mom, Grandpa would be proud of you. Caleb said quietly, you faced everything, Vivian, threw at you and never gave up. Maeve smiled softly, stepping close beside him. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Caleb looked up, eyes warm. You taught me what courage looks like. Grandpa trusted me with the truth, but he trusted you with everything else. Maeve embraced her son tightly, gratitude filling her heart completely. The wounds Vivian caused still lingered, scars permanent, but they no longer defined Maeve. Truth and love restored her strength, dignity reclaimed piece by piece. Later that night, Maeve stood alone in the moonlit study, tracing her fingers along the smooth wooden desk her father had cherished. Tears rose suddenly, silent and healing. "I forgive you, Dad," she whispered into the quiet heart finally unburdened. "You were lost, so was I. But we found each other again, through Caleb. You chose him to bring me back, and he did." She felt a gentle peace settle deeply within, her father's quiet presence seeming to linger briefly beside her. Maeve knew then, without doubt, she was finally home, where she belonged, where Caleb would thrive. Vivian's shadow faded quietly into the past, powerless now against truth and forgiveness. Maeve stepped from the study, closing the door gently behind her, ready at last to embrace a future free of bitterness, strengthened by understanding and quiet resilience. Because Maeve had finally learned the most important truth of all, no matter how deeply buried, love survives betrayal, restores broken bonds, and quietly heals even the deepest wounds. And with that truth, Maeve Dalton moved forward, stronger than ever, ready finally to embrace life fully, exactly as her father had always wanted.